to another episode of Becoming a Techno Wizard. Got a little intro music going on. Let's see how that plays out. This episode, I'm going to talk about information architecture once again. We left off on faceted classification last time in the book of information architecture for the World Wide Web. So today, I read a little bit ahead. Going to start at part 3 of this book, Getting Information Architecture Done. So let's begin. 15 minutes. So far, we focused on concepts and components. Now we're going to shift gears and explore the process and methods for creating information architectures. If it were just a matter of whipping up a few standard sitemaps, our jobs would be easy. But as we've explained, information architecture doesn't happen in a vacuum. The design of complex information environments requires interdisciplinary teams that include interaction designers, software developers, content strategists, usability engineers, and other experts. Effective collaboration requires agreement on the structured development process. Even for smaller projects, when teams are tiny and individuals fill multiple roles, tackling the right challenges at the right time is critical to success. Yep. The following chapters provide an overview of the process and the challenges you will encounter along the way. Our focus on the early stages of research, strategy, and design rather than the larger stages of implementation and administration belies our consulting background. While the vast majority of our experiences have involved strategy and design for fast paced information architecture projects, we are true believers in the importance of nailing the details in implementation and building sustainable architectures. The dedicated in-house staff who protect and perfect information architectures over the long haul are the unsung heroes of the field. Very, very beautiful. I'm telling you, man, this book has inspired me to learn more and kind of get more into information architecture and to be an information architect. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of just delve more into this. There's so much here, which I really want to practice, put into action and things like that. So, but let's go ahead and continue. Chapter 11: Research. Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. Zora Neale Hurston. Very yep. I've been taking a class called "Ask Like a Pro" by Michelle Ronson, and that's definitely kind of the things that you learn throughout that class about how to ask good questions and really get to the meat of situations by being curious by right. You're learning about how customers and people are going through a product or a service or um, just the general kind of information field and things like that. It's extremely powerful to really learn that stuff. Anyways, in this chapter, we'll cover integrating IA into the development process, how and why to study people, context, and content, research methods including stakeholder interviews, heuristic evaluations, user testing, and card sorting. In the early days of website design, many companies employed a one-step process called code HTML. Everyone wanted to jump right in and build a site. People had no patience for research or strategy. people people still have no patience for research strategies. This it's pretty sad that we haven't gotten far, and at least for many teams. We remember one eager client asking us in the middle of a planning session, "So when are we going to start the real work?" Oof, goodness. Fortunately, after several years of painful lessons, there's a growing realization that designing information environments is hard work and requires a phased approach, such as the one shown in Figure 11-1. So in the project phase, you have the research, strategy, design, implementation, and administration. That's a whole program. Process of information architecture development. Interesting. Now, you may be thinking, this looks an awful lot like a waterfall process, and we're agile. Just this alone, oh my gosh, it's so funny and interesting because like this whole problem right now, people trying to fit UX, the UX, the user centered design process in agile. And it's not like user centered design is waterfall or anything like that, but it's like Debbie said it best. It's like it's a different process, right? You can't put it in the same agile cycles as development and as marketing or the other projects, right? It should be its own cycle. It should be its own. You can have agile UX, but it has to be its own, agile center, because you have this process of research, of content, of information architecture, of iterations and all this stuff, and that feeds into development. So you can't just be like, oh, these 2 weeks, this is what we're gonna do. We can't do these sprints. That doesn't work for good UX, because it takes time to do good research. It takes time to find all these people, to ask them, to figure out a good research plan, to do the research, to analyze that research. You can't just speed that process up, right? You can't just you know try to microwave it. That's another term I think Darren Hood says. You can't do microwave UX, right? It's not a microwave dinner. You have to take your time cooking that food. But yeah, anyways, in the case of information architecture, we believe this to be a false dilemma. Agile processes work best when the team knows the goal they're reaching for. Are we building a cathedral or a garage? Yeah. Following the process outlined here helps the team understand the big picture that they are building toward. As with other aspects of the design, the information architecture needs to be refined and iterated on as the product gets built. Yep. That's another thing. Like, um, right, agile kind of has this idea of, yes, it's iterating, but it's iterating on the entire process, on the entire product, right? You get to the MVP and then you build something and then you iterate on the entire process. But that's a waste, right? With UX, if you do good user experience and user-centered design and information architecture, right, you can actually learn all of that before you even build the product. So you can learn, what navigation system to use. You can learn, what features to put in your product before you ship the actual product. So you don't have to waste development time, deployment time, getting bad reviews of people who don't like what you did and all that. You don't have to waste. You don't have to do all that. You can test, with low fidelity and all this other stuff. So that's why it has to be a kind of a separate process. You don't want to do the whole deployment process and then iterate on the entire product. You can just iterate on specific aspects of it. And isn't that more agile, like in the longer span of time, in a grander scheme? Anyways, um, house gets built, and changes will inevitably happen as the product meets real world conditions. Inevitably, I love that word. We are reminded of President Eisenhower's line: "In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." Yeah, right. What's the other word? That line. No plan, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, or something like that. It's good to make a plan so generally what you should be doing, and things like that. But the plan is going to change. The plan is going to fall apart as soon as you start to work it. Another kind of recent idea I've had about this is, or I've heard about this, is theory. Theory is just an idea of what you think is going to happen, but when you actually go to put it to action, it becomes something else. It becomes a hypothesis, or it becomes a result, right? You see actual results of what happens, and then you have to change your theory. You have to create a new theory for the next kind of iteration type of thing. So that's just the beast, the nature of the beast, as they say. With that said, let's examine each phase of the process. The research phase begins with a review of existing background materials and meetings with the strategy team, aimed at gaining aimed at gaining a high-level understanding of the goals and business context, the existing information architecture, the content, and the intended audiences. It then quickly moves into a series of studies employing a variety of methods to explore the information ecology. I like that phrase, information ecology, because it's all like a natural kind of habitat, natural ecosystem of things that you have to move around, and things that are dependent on other organisms, or the organisms within the system, and how one thing is used will determine how another thing is used, and all this other stuff. So I like that phrase, information ecology. This research provides a contextual understanding that forms the foundation for development of an information architecture strategy. From a top down perspective, this strategy defines the highest two or three levels of the information environment's organization and navigation structures. From a bottom up perspective, it suggests candidate document types and a rough metadata schema. I think that's how you pronounce schema. This strategy provides a high level framework for the information architecture, establishing a direction and scope that will guide the project through implementation. Interesting. So, top down approach finds the highest 2 or 3 levels. So, just to make sure I'm understanding this, you have a top down approach where you're looking at, okay, thinking about, okay, what are the main messages we want to get through? What's the main content that we want to, get? What are the call to actions, maybe? I guess that type of thing. And then the bottom up approach is like looking at what you already have, right? What all the data and things that you already have, and seeing how you can best um, surface that right in your site. At least that's how I'm understanding it. Design is where you shape a high level strategy into an information architecture. Yes. All right. Creating detailed sitemaps, wireframes, and metadata schema that will be used by graphic designers, programmers, content authors, and the production team. The design phase is obviously where most of the work of information architecture is done. That said, quantity cannot drive out quality. Poor design execution can ruin the best strategy. Ooh, beautiful. For us, the meat is in the middle and the devil is in the details. That's great. And that kind of goes into, I know this is meant to be for that process that they laid out before, but this definition of design kind of gets into the problem of current ideas of design, of kind of conflating UX UI. You hear it all the time, UX UI. Like, no, it's not the same thing. Like, you can't put them together as if it's a if it's as if it's a parallel type of thing. UI is just one process, like the graphic designers, right? Design is the entire process, the high level strategy, turning information architecture, creating detailed sitemaps, wireframes, metadata schema, right? And that other people use, that the visual designers use, that the programmers use, that the content people use, right? So this understanding of design is I think it's surprisingly underrated, and it's so important. So wow, yeah. Implementation is where your designs are put to the test as the system is built, tested, and launched. This phase involves organizing and tagging documents, testing and troubleshooting, and developing documentation and training programs to ensure that the information architecture can be maintained effectively over time. And last but not least, is administration, the continuous evaluation and improvement of the system's information architecture. Administration includes the daily tasks of tagging new documents and weeding out old ones, that upkeep maintenance. It also requires monitoring usage and user feedback, identifying opportunities to improve through major or minor adjustments. Effective administration can make a good information environment great. That's beautiful. Yeah, because you have to update your things, maintain it, keep it fresh and things like that. And you don't see that very often. You can see that when the site is like hasn't been updated since 2018 or 2014 or some craziness like that. And it's just like, what are you doing? That maintenance, that administration is super important. So that's important. That's nice that they put this in the process. And again, it shows you it shouldn't be in an agile kind of system. It's its own stage, its own process, its own um, kind of umbrella. Anyways, admittedly, this is a simplified view of the process. Look at that. Even though all of this it's so comprehensive, it's still a simplified view because there's so much more into it. That's good that they put that there. Clear lines rarely exist between phases, and few projects begin with a clean slate, right? Budgets, schedules, and politics will inevitably force you off the path and into the woods. We don't aim to provide a paint by numbers design guide. The real world is far too messy, right? Yeah. Instead, represent a framework and some tools and methods that may be useful when applied selectively within your environment. Before we begin, we'll offer a word of encouragement. Much of this work looks tedious and boring when taken out of context. Not all of us can get jazzed up about poring over search logs and analyzing content. Even to me, this doesn't sound too exciting to do all that stuff. And that's something I realized. I really appreciate information architecture, but the process of making a sitemap to me is just like, oh, like I don't enjoy it, but I really appreciate it. And I find it really fascinating to kind of read and learn more about it. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where I personally lay in terms of my skills and my interest in this kind of whole sphere. But it's great to learn more about it, definitely. But when you do this work in the real world, it can be surprisingly engaging. And when that magic light bulb turns on, revealing a pattern that suggests a solution, you'll be glad you took the time to do it right. Yeah, that's why I do it right here. Is that light bulb? It's like when you do figure it out. Like I slogged through creating a site map of my projects that I worked on, and I'm trying to get more into it. I volunteered to help create a site map for OMI, for the Open Metaverse Interoperability Group. Um, Trying to kind of redo my website, trying to help my mom with her website. Oh, there's the time right there. But yeah, like I don't like doing it, but this part right here, when you figure out something and you're like, oh wow, this works. Like this is beautiful. Like it's intuitive. People can look at it and be like, oh wow, I know where to go. I know what to do. I know what this is about. And it's just like, it's all worth it, you know? This is why I like design in general, because it's the same type of thing with coding, with development. Like you have to problem solve, right? You have to figure out what syntax to use, what framework to use, what tools to use, whatever. But for me, it wasn't worth it. Like I would struggle making things, trying to figure out the syntax and the code, all this other stuff, and I'm just like, finally got something to work. I'm just like, I don't care, man. I just it wasn't a good enough payoff. But with design, I don't know, something it's hard, but it's still worth it. So yeah, this is fun. And ended there for today. Trying to see when I should raise it up to like 20 minutes or so, but I think 15 minutes is good now because I'm doing a lot of stuff right now. I have so many projects going. Um and I'm excited to share more of them and to get more of them, flowing. So as always, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this, if you learned anything from this short little segment. And thanks for everything. Have a great day. See ya. Bye. 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 See ya.